I want to welcome you to create a life and career you love for perfectionists. So I know there's a lot of us out there, and just a couple quick tips before we get started. I'm sure we'll be all very respectful. And if you need anything, please type any comments in the chat or just give me a reaction, and I will definitely try to check it periodically. And then we'll have a couple moments to be interactive, so you can share what's coming up for you. So I wanted to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm Rosie Guagliardo, the founder of Inner Brilliance Coaching, and I've been a certified life and career coach since 2007. I'm also a member of Forbes Coaching Council, and I'm a contributing author to a book called Turning Point Moments, which was on the Amazon best-selling list, which was very exciting. And for as long as I can remember, I've been a perfectionist. And that left me a bit exhausted, if I'm being honest. But up until recently, I would even joke I was a recovering perfectionist, meaning I thought I was trying to get beyond that. But we might not have to let go of our perfectionist tendencies. Maybe we can find a healthy way to embrace it. So with all that in mind, I decided to combine all of my learnings from my ad experience, my coaching certifications, along with my Northwestern psychology degree to support high-achieving people discover an easier way of living, where they can experience results for their life and their career with more ease, joy, and grace daily versus feeling anxious or exhausted on their journey. Now, if this sounds like something you want, I know I can help you be what I like to call a happier high achiever. So I'm excited to talk about how to experience all that you desire in your life with a lot more flow. And if you are here in August, I feel like maybe that means you're excited too, because it's a great time to reset and revisit how you can finish the year out strong. Now, before we get started, I want to ask just a couple questions to see if this sounds like you. And I'm going to put up a poll. And basically, if you could just answer any of these that resonate with you, basically. You find yourself being uber efficient. Maybe you're using or know all the productivity tips like time blocking and batching and all that. Or maybe you're able to connect the dots faster than other people in your life, either personally or professionally, to get to conclusions more quickly. So it's like you see patterns and things coming together faster than other people do. Or maybe you never say things like, let me know if I missed anything, because you never do miss anything. So go ahead and type in if any of these are relevant for you. And if they're not, that's okay. It's just helping me kind of get an understanding. Okay, so I see a lot of you connect the dots faster than others, right? So you get to those conclusions quickly. Thanks for sharing that. See a lot of us, that was all of it. All right, next, I am curious, does this sound like you as well? And that could be this next set of questions, which is, you are slowly losing joy you used to have in your day-to-day life. So maybe you felt like it was there before, but not always. You're getting results, but at a cost. Or you're constantly following up with people to make sure they did their work. So you're doing your work and then you're going back and making sure everyone else is doing what they need to do. Or also that micromanaging that you have to feel like you do is now flowing into your personal life, which isn't always welcomed at home. So let's see. Kirsten, I just saw, yeah, you can feel like it's all of them. So interesting, same here. Feel free, you're losing the joy used to have in life. You're getting results, but there's a cost to it, right? So I'm going to share these just so you could see it. So if these are true, you might be a perfectionist, which I guess that probably isn't a huge surprise since we're here, but I wanted to share this concept of perfectionism too, because what I've noticed is some people feel it in some areas of their life, but not in all areas of their life. And I want to highlight how some of these tendencies might have served you well, and especially if they were based on your true gifts and talents, or if they were aligned with desired outcomes that you have. But I've also noticed that our drive for excellence doesn't always come from our strengths or our deepest desires. So to help see the difference, I thought we'd start with this definition I have here of perfectionists. I feel like most people think of, and see if any of these sound like you. You set unrealistically high expectations for yourself or for others. Maybe you're quick to find fault, or you're overly critical of mistakes, or maybe you procrastinate a project because you're afraid it won't go well, or if someone gives you a compliment, you don't really take it and you forget to celebrate any of your success. You don't really focus on the wins. Now, you might not have all of these traits, but generally you might notice that you're a little self-critical, or maybe you feel pressure to be the best and worry others will reject you if you're not. Or you feel anxiety and low confidence because you're constantly looking outside of yourself, right? These perceived standards come from family or the workplace or a culture or society. And at times you might even hold others to high standards and can be, like I said earlier, critical of them. Now, I know I felt this way in the past, and it just doesn't feel good. But I also know it's tough to let go of these tendencies when they might have also served you in some way. And as I learn more about perfectionism, I realize there are different types of perfectionists. In fact, I feel like a better way to describe this particular type of perfectionist is a term I've heard from the Harvard Business Review, and it's insecure overachiever, which describes me and I would say many of my clients. It's when deep down we feel insecure about our abilities. And for most of us, there's this intangible quality about our knowledge for what we do. So because of that, we might constantly be in proving mode. In fact, Martha Beck, who's a coach, used to coach Oprah Winfrey, talks about how we have a choice. We can either be in proving mode, or we could be in I'm here to share my gifts and talents mode. I know I tend to be in proving mode, or I was for a while. How can I show people that I understand or what I'm doing is right? Now, this energy or way of being can show up at work and in our personal lives. What's interesting to me is you could even come across as confident and be confident. But if you're in constant doing mode, you might want to ask yourself, what kind of achiever am I and why? Some other ways I've heard this described is people saying, like, I became a robot, or as I had more demands put on me, I just kept going. And you would say, oh, I'll take a break later. And that later never came. So the question is, why do we do this? Or why do we keep doing it even after we have a break? Like, I know people go on vacation and they come back feeling relaxed, but we get right back into the grind. Or we had a global pandemic and we noticed how life can slow down and still go on, but I see everything picking up again. So when I think of the why, this is what I learned that I feel like it really resonated with me. And it's that insecure overachievers are exceptionally capable and fiercely ambitious, yet they're driven by a profound sense of their own inadequacy. Now, this typically stems from childhood and may result from various factors such as experience of financial or physical deprivation, or a belief that their parents' love was contingent upon their behaving and performing well. Now, this isn't to blame or shame our parents. They really probably did the best they could. But I was curious about my own childhood and how certain situations conditioned me to be this way. That's when it hit me one day, why I might be this way. And I want to share quickly my story to see if you can relate at all. So this is me when I got my latest pair of hearing aids. And I'd been trying for decades to get some that worked for me. And I was finally happy I found some. I even was honored to speak to the employees of my hearing aids company. This is a global company, and they wanted me to share about my hearing loss journey. So while I was preparing for this engagement, I realized why I might be a perfectionist, or if I'm being honest, how I became an insecure overachiever. And this is where the story starts. That's me as a little kid. And around the time I was 8 years old, might be, I don't know, maybe that picture of me holding the present, or that other one with me and my sister and cousin in Italy, I learned that I had hearing loss, and it would progressively get worse. It's a rare genetic hearing loss. See, a little gift from my dad and his dad. And when I was preparing for my journey for that speaking engagement I just mentioned, I realized I was probably experiencing hearing loss much younger. So not at 8, but probably closer to 4 years old. And I thought of this because when I was 4, we had lived in Italy for a year, and we decided it wasn't for us, so we moved back. And I had forgotten how to speak English, basically. So I had to relearn how to speak English. And I was in kindergarten, and it was Valentine's Day. And I don't know if you remember this or they still do this, but we all made Valentine's Day cards for everyone. And they had to dry from all the glue and the glitter. So they were put on the side of the classroom. And when they were ready, we were told to go get them. Now, I thought the teacher said that we could go pick out one we wanted or liked. But she actually said we had to go get our own. So let me tell you, when I picked out the pretty one I really liked, I was so embarrassed. I was yelled at in front of the whole classroom, and I was told I wasn't supposed to take someone else's card, and I was literally accused of stealing in front of the whole class. Till this day, I remember that feeling of shame, and that was decades ago. So at the time, or not at the time, but in the years after that, I thought maybe I misunderstood because of my language barrier. But like I said, when I was preparing for the speaking engagement with my hearing aids company, it hit me, wait a minute, I understood what to do, like to go get the cards. So I understood part of what she was saying. And I remember the teacher shaming me in front of everyone. So it must have been that I didn't hear her correctly in the first place. And I bring this up for a couple of reasons. If you do share today, I might ask you to speak up. So that's number one. But the second reason I bring this up is that because of that incident, and probably other ones after that, I spent years after that working really hard and compensating to make sure I didn't feel that pain again. So I realized I was letting that old operating system, or some old beliefs or thoughts I had that were once probably helpful for me to protect me, those were now running my adult life. So again, an insecure overachiever might have these situations. I know it's a physical or financial deprivation. In my case, I guess it was a disability that led me to this place of always working hard, improving myself, and trying to protect myself and making sure I understood everything. But without that awareness, decades later, 2 things happened. There was a payoff to all of this hard work and what seemed like high standards of perfection I had. I ended up getting married. I had a cute condo overlooking the lake, and I had a really fun job. That's me in a roller coaster for my job. We would have to test out the roller coasters for Busch Gardens, Tampa, and SeaWorld. So from the outside, it seemed like all this was working out. I had it all. And although I was enjoying myself at times, the truth was I was so focused on results and trying to keep up with everything in my life that I found myself just working harder and harder to get anything else I desired. And I felt like this low level of anxiety as I tried to be very prepared all the time for every area of my life and get everything done on my to-do list. It was like life was whizzing past me, even for fun things like trying to see friends, maybe support my family, and obviously to get my work done. So my life didn't feel as fun as it could. And honestly, it felt like having goals defeated the point of achieving them, which was to feel happier. And I found myself feeling exhausted and frustrated as I continued to work hard to chase new goals, different goals, like losing weight or getting that next promotion. And these feelings made me realize I was chasing what I thought I wanted or I should do or I had to do. So I wasn't even excited about some of these goals. I was just basing my happiness on my circumstances or other people's definition of success. I was forcing myself to go for the goals that in some ways were meaningful to me. But if I was really being honest, I could see how my life was not in alignment with what I deeply desired or what made me happy. And that's when I thought, I'm done. I'm only going to do what I really wanted to do. But I wasn't even sure what that was. I thought I knew and I had an idea, but I wasn't sure. So there was this disconnect between what I valued at the deepest level and how I was living my life. That's when I knew I had to make changes. I just couldn't sustain this level of tension and feeling overwhelmed. So I set out on a path to have a life I love, based more on what I wanted, what was that I deeply desired in my heart, and just what made me happy. A life that I was excited to wake up in the morning and start living every day. Now, my first step was to stop and be honest with myself and understand I could have more of an impact on my happiness than I realized. Now, around this time, I also came across a quote from Harvard professor Tal Ben-Shahar. And it was something basically about happiness is the balance of pleasure and meaning. Now, I realized I had an idea of what had meaning to me, but the pleasure wasn't always as clear. And you might have the opposite, right? You might know it brings you joy, but not as much meaning. Either way, both have to be involved. So this meant I needed to get to know myself better. So I started connecting with my real self and honoring my desires and understanding what's important to me versus my friends, family, society, and who I am, which is essentially my truth. I also started minimizing those shoulds and the have-tos in my life, again, based on other people's definition of success. That's when the transformation happened. I began making sure that all of my activities aligned with what brought me joy. And I started radiating the real me everywhere I went because I was more joyful. And I was focusing on what made me feel good and what energized me. Now, this shift in focus is the key. All the shoulds started falling away, and what was left was me, allowing me, the real me, to attract and eventually experience the results I desired for myself, for my life overall, for my career, my relationships, and my health. And it happened in a way that felt natural and organic. Now, this switch for me of starting with feeling joy in the moment and focusing on what I wanted versus focusing on what others were doing or being really judgmental of myself and others was the secret to experiencing results. I went from stressing to achieving goals to building a life based on what I loved, which actually led me to getting the results I desired, like I said, with ease and grace. And instead of forcing myself to take action or coming from this place of unconscious doing mode, I started doing what I call healthy striving. So with awareness, I was able to take that side of me that has been trying to help me and protect me, that insecure overachiever side that's been working hard and overcompensating. And I made sure that side was balanced so I could be a happier high achiever. In fact, this quote about perfectionism made me feel that this is who I wanted to be more. And it's about perfectionists are organized and conscientious. They set high standards for themselves in their lives and careers, and they're able to go after their goals. Now, this kind of perfectionism is generally associated with greater productivity and success, including resourcefulness and assertiveness. They show higher rates of positive emotion and motivation. Now, this definition made me realize it's important to question whether our behavior is a dedication to excellence or something else. In some cases, it might be your desire to do your best from a place of standards that are admirable. So again, this perfectionism or achieving energy might serve you well. It's just important to understand where that drive comes from. If it's connected to your truth and your joy, then it could be ideal to honor it. You can start to see that being a perfectionist in certain areas of your life could be acceptable or even helpful. Now let's explore the impact of this way of living and the possibilities that might serve you even better. So what if you could excel and not be exhausted or drained? What if you can embrace that healthy striving? Hopefully you saw some similarities from my story in your own life, and this definition of perfectionism sounds better, where it doesn't have to feel hard to get what you want, and you can come from a place of your truth and happiness. Now, when I hear that, I feel like, okay, sounds great. But how do we make that switch? I'm going to share why embracing this perspective works to get results with more joy and how you can do it too. And if you stay till the end, I'll share how you can get a play sheet that will help you apply all of what we discussed today. So what I want to do with the rest of our time is shine a light on how you can figure out what you desire, what makes you happy, and how to tap into your truth. How to befriend your perfectionism in a way that serves you. And to look at how you could set goals or get results in a different way, where it doesn't have to feel so hard or exhausting. And I'm going to do this by sharing the principles and a process I use with my clients about how to get clear on what you want and how to build your life around these desires. So I hope you're interested in learning more. Again, we won't have time to finish this whole exploration today, but at the end of the webinar, we'll talk about ways to continue this work after you leave. So we're going to explore 4 ways to embrace perfectionism and be happier. We're going to start with uncovering possibilities for your life in various areas of your life. Then we're going to get into what your deepest desires are, what's important to you overall. And then we're going to focus these desires to get results. Then I'll show you how we put all of that information together to create a plan for developing your desired outcomes, or what I call goals, that you're actually excited to pursue. And this is all to be a happier high achiever by helping you build a life you love with more joy. So let's dive in with the exercises and see how we can make this happen for you. I just want to remind you before we get started, there are no right or wrong answers. These questions and exercises are just about helping you bring forth what you want. And really the possibilities are endless, and we're here to begin that dialogue. Or if you've answered these types of questions before, I think they're great to continuously revisit because you might get new information in the moment that you could apply. So again, we're going to start with a couple of questions to determine how the answers can guide you as you develop your goals to move toward more happiness in your life. And some of you might have gotten this in the pre-work. And if you did, you can just take a couple more minutes to consider the questions. Or if these are new to you, you might want to take more time after the webinar to consider them. But again, it's always a good starting point. So the first question is, look forward 20 years from now. You're attending a function where someone is giving a speech about you. What would you want them to say about you? I'm going to pause here while you consider that. Next, ask yourself, in order to achieve those words or what people are saying about you in this speech from someone else, who would you have to be? So if you're a mom or if you're a hard worker, maybe you said something about being, great at work. What qualities were showing up? Was it inner strength, committed effort? Next, here's another question. Take a look at all the things you've done in your life. Professionally, personally, it doesn't matter. What gives you the greatest feeling of importance or fulfillment? Is there an accomplishment or something that happened that gives you that great feeling of importance and fulfillment? Try to pick one scenario. And what qualities did you possess to accomplish this? In other words, who were you being to achieve this? So just a quick example from my life is, so I kind of cheated because I did pick two, but I couldn't decide on one. So one example was that when I was in advertising, 3 of my clients asked me to interview for positions with them. And that was my professional example. So that felt really good. I felt like I must be giving good quality service if that's what they said to me, if they wanted me to interview there. The other scenario, which was personal, was I just loved and felt so good about being an aunt. So I have 5 nieces and nephews. And when I started thinking about who I had to be or who I must have been back then to have these 3 companies reach out to me and ask to work with them or interview with them, I thought about, well, I think I was respectful to the client. I think I was trustworthy. I would also say I was understanding of them. I had been on the client side before, so I think they felt like I could understand their perspective. And I was playful and warm. That was just my personality. I thought if we're going to be at work this long, we should have a good time. What was interesting is when I thought about the scenario of being an aunt, the same qualities came up. Of course, the kids could trust me. I was respectful of them. I talked to them like they were little people from the moment they were younger. I felt like I was understanding. And of course, being an aunt, I was playful and warm. So hopefully you could see that these are clues to who I am at my best and what makes me feel happy naturally and feel successful. You can see that when I show up that way, it feels good. Now, when I go through this whole process with my clients, there's several more questions we'd answer and explore, but hopefully these are starting to give you a little bit of an opportunity to consider broader possibilities for your life and getting you a little bit closer to what makes you feel happier. Now, this is important because when we don't take the time to reflect and consider what's possible for ourselves, we can end up into that overachievement burnout phase of our lives. So I wanted to share an example where a client took the time to get clear on possibilities for her life and the magical results she experienced. She was a corporate executive looking for flexibility and joy, and basically she was in a toxic work culture. So there was not a lot of room for joy or creativity. And she thought, okay, I really want to be able to have a career with that flexibility, like I said, and a little more joy. But that insecure overachiever side of her kept going and she just kept going and going. And finally, when we met, she's like, I want to change. She still had those concerns about being financially stable if she chose a new and different career, especially at the point of her career she was in. So we took some time to really understand what she wanted. And to be honest, it didn't look like anything she's seen before. So it was hard to identify at first. She was thinking of a variety of options that included more travel or maybe connecting with people more because she was in data analysis. And that felt scary because it was new territory, but she was open to possibilities. Well, while we were in the process of searching for that new job and new goals and a new area for her to explore, she had an opportunity come up to stay at her current company, but to work there with decreased hours and a salary that worked better for her because she wanted that flexibility and she became a contract worker. What was amazing to see is that during our time together, because she was open to possibilities, she was more relaxed and comfortable in her skin. And that confidence, or what I like to call relaxed confidence, helped her to be open to this option before she quit and left the company because she was on the verge. But then it showed up. And the results are she's working part-time, she's planning to retire early, and she travels all the time for pleasure. So it really worked out for her. So what I want to do next, that was an example of how that could work. Uncovering your possibilities helps you to stay open. Next, I want to dig deeper on what's important to you and why that matters. We want to learn about personal values. In other words, we want to learn what has meaning for you, broadly speaking, and then relate it to your career and other areas of your life. When we know what you really want in your life, you can be true to yourself and allow that information to guide you. So uncovering your values matters because when you become more aware of what's important to you, in other words, your personal values, you'll better understand what motivates you. And sometimes there's these hidden motivations we aren't entirely aware of as we live our day-to-day lives that are the strongest. So if we can raise our awareness about them and create intentions or desired outcomes based on them, the more enthusiastic we'll be and feel to make the changes in our lives. So here's an example I've shared before, but it's always so relevant, which is every year I used to make a New Year's resolution to lose 10 pounds, and every year it didn't happen. If there's a piece of cake in front of me, I thought, I'm just going to eat that cake today. I'll lose 10 pounds tomorrow. So that tomorrow, right? We keep waiting for tomorrow. But when I started learning about my values, and there's exercises we could do to help you understand them, I recognized that what I really wanted when it came to my health goals in particular was to feel more energized and fit. I really didn't care about weighing a certain amount, that 10 pounds. That was a should. And I know feeling more energized and fit sounds intangible, but I was excited to figure out ways to do it. So I started refining my goals to reflect those two desires. So before this, I didn't understand that energy could even be a value or that it was important to me. But in the end, with time, I started learning more about how to give my body energy. And it was more about through better sleep, exercise, and modifying what I ate. So I started adopting these new behaviors, again, in hopes of getting more energy. And what that looked like was working out every other day and eating the Mediterranean diet. Now, this way of living allowed me to eat what I like and live a life with activities I enjoyed. Notice I wasn't trying to do some binge diet or yo-yo dieting or working out every day. It was weaved into my life in a way that felt good. And the results were great. When my health goals were based on my values, in this case of more energy, I could experience both meaning and pleasure. And I ended up feeling better than ever. I had more energy in my 30s and 40s than I ever did before my 20s. Plus, I lost weight. So there was that added benefit. And I like sharing this example because I hope you can see that knowing yourself better, trusting yourself to go for what makes you happy, building goals on what you genuinely want leads you to be more excited to pursue goals versus feeling like you're forcing yourself to take action. And I like to think of that saying where there's passion, there's purpose, and there's action. So again, I hope you can see from my example that I was able to get results because I was more connected to my truth and I went for what I wanted, which was more enjoyable. And that's what I want for you. And that's what I do with my coaching. I help people understand what's important to them or build a values-based life, which leads to a life they love. And we do this by going through a couple of exercises that help them understand their values without coming out and asking the person what they want. Because when you do that, if someone said, "What are your values?" you might say things you think you should say, or in other words, things your insecure overachiever values. We want to make sure you're saying what you value, you at your best. If you want to start considering what your values are, you can start by looking at how you answered the questions in the previous exercise about uncovering possibilities. Those can highlight your values. For example, if you were being courageous or committed when you thought of an accomplishment, or if someone said that about you in a speech, then courage and commitment are probably values of yours. Also, knowing what I really wanted helped me to break some bad habits. So when I got really clear on wanting energy, it helped me to stop doing things that weren't really serving me and shift into taking action that supported my real goals and my true identity. So that was the total benefit. So what you'll start to notice is that these values are those of your best self when we explore this, right? Or as I like to say now, that healthy perfectionist side of you. And if you can be aware of the values that belong to your insecure overachiever, you're going to benefit. So again, understanding your values helps you to get to know what part of your life is leading you. Is it your insecure overachiever? That side of you that might doubt your talents or overworks or holds you back because there's a fear of failure? Or I understand it could be the side of you that wants stability and to protect yourself. And that's not bad, but you don't want that to be the exaggerated part of your life. So there's this other side of you that knows there's so much more that's possible for you, especially when you focus on your true gifts and talents and all the possibilities in your life. So consider and ask yourself if you're inspired by your best self. Either way, it's important to recognize and accept all sides of yourself for more energy, because with awareness of these sides, you can make better choices and be fueled for your next step in a healthy way. So will you listen to that side that drains your energy, or that side that's your best and an inspiration? If you do the latter, you'll be fueled by your vital life force. So here's another example of how this worked for a recent empty nester who wanted a new career. She was a busy stay-at-home mom, who got actually busier during COVID because she thought people would be leaving and her kids would be going to college, but that didn't happen quite yet. But she was still ready to go back to work. And again, her nest wasn't quite empty. But we started working together and reflecting on possibilities for her life. And she was dreaming and planning for these different career choices. And as a former marketing person and actress, she had a variety of interests, including health coaching and some other ideas. So exploring her career options was only part of her life because she still wanted to be that involved mom. But understanding her, well, say, conflicting values helped her to recognize the difference between her best self and her overdoing, overgiving side. And her turning point was understanding she didn't need to be that same kind of mom to children who basically would be living there now, but were leaving soon, or they were going to college, or even family members who grew to rely on her because she was often overgiving. So she started finally honoring her values and setting boundaries and making changes in her life she needed. She really developed a strong foundation for her health, and she was really embodying her best self. And the results were amazing. She went from honing her craft in acting classes to being an extra occasionally on certain shows, and now working full weeks on TV shows such as Sarah Jessica Parker's and Just Like That, plus her favorite show, Succession. Now she continues to pursue her dreams, and she keeps getting results, but with more joy. It's really fun to see how this can all come to life when we honor our values. Next, I want to show you how all of this information is helping you gain clarity in your life. And hopefully you're starting to see that you don't have to feel overwhelmed. You can have clear tools to figure out what you want and definitely be more motivated to go for what you want when you know your why. Now, through this process of getting to know yourself better and what makes you feel happier, you're prepared to think about how you want to express your true self and attract what you desire in any area of your life, from, again, relationships to health and career. To get even more focused, I use this tool called the Wheel of Life. And as you can see, it has different components of your life in it. So I'm curious if you want to just jot in the chat, which of these areas do you most want to improve or change right now? What comes up for you? Just good to explore. As you're jotting in the chat, I'll share a little bit more about it. I use this tool to help, again, evaluate which goals or desires you'd want to focus on right now. And I take my clients through a series of questions to not only help them uncover where the best place to focus is, but also to understand how they're succeeding in certain areas of their life. Understanding what you do well helps identify your strategies for success. And we can apply these strategies to other areas of your life too. Now, this tool and step is important because two issues I notice when people struggle with their goals is that they try to take too many on in different life areas. And they try to approach it as others would, versus relying on what comes naturally to them. Now, we won't have time to dive into everything today, but knowing which areas of your life you'd like to focus on and what your unique strategies for success are will be helpful so you can experience your goals versus feeling overwhelmed and unmotivated. And I'm noticing in the chat, yeah, there's quite a bit, right? Career, family, and friends. You have a few. Everything. Physical environment, personal growth, money, career, fun, right? And that could be so true. I'm inviting you, if possible, to start narrowing those down to 3 areas at a time. It's just too hard to do all of it at once. And I talk to my clients about how you can plan out that series of steps. So you can get to all of these different goals, but you just can't do them all at once. Thank you for sharing. So The next step is take all of this information and develop desired outcomes with inspired next steps. And we do this by putting it into a proprietary framework and then into a plan. Because now, think about it, you have 3 valuable pieces of information about yourself in this process. What's possible for your life and who you are at your best. You'd have your values or what's important to you, remember, not others, and what makes you happy. And then you'd have your priorities, a way to focus your efforts and succeed. And then you could take all of your thinking and integrate the information into a plan for how to have a life you love. So I like to say we capture all of this information into SMART goals. You may have heard of that before, but I have a twist on SMART goals, which is, SMART, where it's specific, measurable, actionable, resonant, because it's based on your values, and thrilling. Again, what makes you happy. And so with this approach that I'm about to share, you'll see there's these steps, or like I say, your mini goals are genuinely inspired based on what you want versus what you think you should do, because you're leading with happiness and what brings you joy, as well as being meaningful. Now, before I use this approach, when it came to, let's say, my career and a goal there, I would say I would like to look for a job or get a promotion. And the next step might be something smart and logical like networking. But that didn't always get me that excited. So I want to show you with this new approach how I coach clients to uncover which values they would like to honor. So you need to narrow it down to a few in each area of their life. So again, with this example of career, this is how you could start to put a plan together. You pick one life area, you pick which values, in this case, energy, connectedness, and accomplishments. Then we'd explore your strategies for success, which you're more likely to use than someone else's. And in this case, I would say an example could be I established good relationships. Then we would take all of this information, we'd coach on your values and your strategy to develop a desired outcome, again, based on your values. And you're more likely to take the steps. And I like the way this came out. This desired outcome was my dream career energizes me as I make connections and achieve success. So instead of saying, I'm going to go get a job, that's what you might say. And your inspired next steps might be to set up one meeting weekly or dress like a boss. Now, doesn't that sound like more fun than looking for a job and networking? The action might be the same, right? You're still meeting with people, and that sounds like networking, but it's infused with a new energy because it's based on your value of connecting and feeling energized. Now, with this process for approaching your goals, you'll see how honoring your values can improve the satisfaction level in all areas of your life. You're priming yourself to not only experience happiness, but also that sense of meaning and pleasure. Now, this is the beginning of your life plan with desired outcomes and next steps. When you have a full plan, you're more likely to experience what you desire. So you might have a few of these. So I hope you can discover this new way to live and understand that values are so important. And you can use your unique values as guideposts for making decisions, for moving forward, and to create those inspired next steps. Again, you can go through the same process for other life areas and just keep asking yourself, are you doing an activity or taking an action that doesn't align with your values? If so, why are you doing that? What part of you feels like you need to do that? Is it that unhealthy perfectionist side? And when you think of an inspired next step and how you can support yourself to follow through on these goals that you've created, you might need some structure to make sure you're setting up those lunches or meetings. So you might want to put a reminder in your calendar. And then you want to revisit your plan every quarter. So here's the last example I wanted to share with you. You can see that there's this client here, she created desired outcomes and she had a plan. She's basically a doctor who loved dancing, but she had given up on dancing for a while because she didn't have time, right? She was saving lives and she felt like there wasn't a lot of room for that. See, she also wanted to have a romantic life. And so, again, not a lot of room for that. She was really concerned that her stressful job would just kept perpetuating this doing mode. So what we did is we got really clear on her values. We created goals based on them, and she was inspired to follow through on them and the next steps we created. The key here is because of that inspiration, she took consistent action, and it was in an organized and conscientious way, like that healthy perfectionist we mentioned. And she ended up being really productive and positive. And because of that, she attracted what she desired. Her career is better than ever. She's now dancing and she goes to these competitions and wins awards all the time. And she's in a happy marriage. I actually went to her wedding in Mexico. So it was really fun to see. So all of this is possible with some reflection and some thoughtfulness and consistent action. So now you have a choice to apply what you've discussed here today, right? And to get support you need. I know it's a lot. I know I've shared a lot. And if you're new to me, it might feel overwhelming. But you don't need to do this alone. It can be helpful to do this within a community or have some sort of structure from a mentor or curriculum that can help you. And just to recap, I hope you can see that this approach with all of these steps can help you be your best. And as we described earlier, that perfectionist or happy or high achiever with that healthy approach to striving. So again, imagine you're going from trying to be like other people to fit in to uncovering your possibilities. You're going from honoring values of your friends and family and society to discovering your values. Maybe you're going from doing shoulds and have-tos to developing your goals. And you're going from that exhausted and stressed perfectionist to a happier high achiever. And if you want any support, I have a program called Be Perfectly You. So I really believe that with these steps, you can be the best you. And I say perfectly, not in a perfect way, but just truly you. And if you want any support in making the transition, I am happy to provide that. If you think you could be a fit for something like this, I'm happy to book a no obligation call, and I can share a link in the chat if you wanted to. Just hear more about the options, but I have a variety of options that can support you, from private coaching to a group program that starts September 15th to an online version that you can do as a self-study. And I'm going to share a special offer with that in a couple minutes, just so you can get started if you wanted to. But again, here are the benefits that you can experience with this new way of living. And more importantly, so you can have a life you love. You can know what makes you truly happy. You can align with your truth for genuine motivation. And when you do that, you're fueling each step that comes next. So you can have those results with joy and become that happier high achiever. So again, I wanted to share that I have that program, Be Perfectly You. And you could either do this online, you could do it private. The online is a self-study, or you can join my next cohort. And here's the special bonus I wanted to share with you. If you wanted to get the online program and you sign up for it by tomorrow night, Thursday at midnight, you can use code PERFECT, PERFECT, for 20% off. So I'm going to share this online version if you want it. And this is, if you go to the bottom of it, if you go to that link, you'll go to the bottom, you'll get that play sheet I mentioned, which has all of the steps we shared, plus some bonus tips. I know we only have a couple minutes, but I'm going to try to get in some bonus tips I want to share. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can stay for just a couple more minutes? You could just put it in the chat. Yeah, thanks, Dan. That's perfect. Okay, great. So basically with any of this program in the variety of ways that it's offered, you can get all of these steps. You can uncover new possibilities. We clarify what's important. We identify your areas of focus. We would discover your strategies for success against what your unique formula is, so that you could start channeling your energy in the places that matter most to you. And then we would develop the desired outcomes with the wheel of life and the proprietary framework. And then we would create your life plan. So ideally, you can consistently follow through on those steps. If you're interested, like I said, in this program online, there are 3 phases for it, or even in the group program. This is the general explanation for the program. There's 3 phases. You see the perfection in you by connecting with your truth and your best self. So we would do a lot of exercise we talked about today. Then we would see the perfection in others by learning how to connect with others. And what we'd explore there are what your emotional triggers are, how we could create new structures to support you, and how we could ask for help in a way that feels good. And then lastly, we would see the perfection in your life, and you would start connecting with your world and applying your learnings. This is the last phase because we don't want the old version of you creating this next step of your life, right? So we have several exercises there that would help you do that. Here's the online program you would get. It would be, and this is the one where there's that special offer for 20% off if you sign up by tomorrow. And I try to make it really affordable, and it comes with play sheets and daily sheets to follow through. So I think you'd really like that because it's just hard sometimes to just follow along. And there's the 7 modules that could take you through a year, but the best part is they're about an hour each, so you can get through them all in much less time and apply all of these. So you would create a mantra to inspire yourself. You would learn how to create those goals. You would learn about releasing self-doubt. You'd create positive habits and be more productive so you flow through your day. You would declutter your environment and create a space that excites you, inspires you. And we would talk about how you could get more into your heart and your body versus always being vigilant into your mind. And finally, you would be able to learn about manifesting in a way that's very practical. I know it could sound a little woo-woo. So with all that, just remember, if you have any questions or want to sign up, let me know. You can even reach out and set up a call with me to decide if you want to sign up for that online program. Lastly, I want to leave you with my favorite tips to be a happier high achiever. First, it's have a day of play. You need recovery time to come back stronger. It's during this time that you get better ideas and you actually get stronger. It's kind of like when you work out. People think lifting weights is when you get stronger. It's actually you're ripping your muscles while you're lifting weights, and then during the recovery period is when the bicep builds up. Or if you're like, I just can't relax or have that play side or recovery, what's something fun you could do that is still rejuvenating, like maybe taking a walk or journaling or transitioning after work. Next, choose where you channel your excellence, right? You don't have to be excellent in everything. And this is where I like to dive into energy management versus time management. So we want to, and there's a series of steps I can explain for this, but if you know anything about the time management piece, there's great tools out there, but what you need to do is energy management, which your values can help you with, plus creating positive habits can help you with, so that you fill up with premium energy and you follow through on what you say you're going to do or not do. Okay, that's where you channel your excellence. Third, block out time on your calendar. This way you can see what's realistic and you don't double book yourself like I used to. And you're more likely to do something if it's in your calendar. 4, focus on the outcome and excellence. Don't get hung up on how you'll get there. Just focus on what you want it to look like, and the plan will unfold before you. Finally, this may seem counterintuitive, but you need to detach from the outcome. You can have desires, intentions, and goals, but remain detached from the outcome. I've heard this saying before, and it's really powerful. Expectations equal suffering. So don't get so attached to it, the expectation or the outcome, but have it and use it to inspire you. So with that said, I hope you are seeing there's a different way to live and that you can make this happen for yourself. So a few things before you go, if you want to make this happen for yourself, because I think we could sit through these webinars or workshops and then we lose a little motivation afterwards. We're excited now. Thanks, Stephanie, but make sure to tell a friend, take your inspired next steps and put them in a calendar. After you have your plan, if you follow through on all of this, review that plan weekly and daily. Surround yourself with a supportive community. If you can have more than one person, I think it's even better. Or let's have a chat. We can talk privately about how we can support you in creating that plan. And lastly, again, if you want that play sheet of all of this that we discussed, just make sure you go to the bottom, just scroll down. All right, everyone, please stay in touch. I hope you feel like you have some tips and tools to be that happier high achiever and to feel grace, joy daily. And you can be a perfectionist with a life you love.